Also, going back to the monsters, I know this seems very disjointed. It's hard to point out where this game went wrong because it's all interwoven. It's like it's very hard to explain. I can't just point at one thing and be like, you know what, this game was good, but the combat sucked. Here's why the combat sucks. It's like everything works together to suck. I mean, outside of a few aspects like music and the whatnot, but I don't really recall what the music was like, but I don't remember it being particularly offensive. I just remember the loading screen being particularly offensive because it's long-ass and boring, and it's always the same damn image until you change acts, and there's only 3 acts. Anyways. Creatures. I remember I couldn't play the original Witcher because it was a PC-only game, and I don't feel like upgrading my PC just to play one game. But I did remember looking at some of the guides and just seeing all these really cool, interesting monsters. Like, they had like lists upon lists of all these different monsters, and they're all very unique in the way that they were set up. And this one has far less monsters, and most of the different monsters are actually color palette swaps. And outside of like 3 or 4 monsters, I'd say like the other 12 in the game, you know, whenever you're not stabbing humans in the face all the time, they all have mob tactics. You know, whereas the other one, I don't know if Witcher 1 was just tooting its horn, and because I never played it, but it at least sounded like different monsters acted differently. Like certain ones would attack you from a range, and other ones would be the mobs, other ones, you know, were like really durable but slow, and it sounded like there was a nice variety of things that you could fight, you know. Certain ones were suicide bomber sort of things. I guess the last 2 things I really want to gripe on with this game, one of them is the mini-games. Normally you could say, oh, well, you could just skip the mini-games, but this game's really scarce on gold, which is something I kind of like, because I find lots of games, there's never anything you want to buy, and you always have more gold than you know what to do with, whereas this game, it seemed like, you know, it always kind of seemed like you had enough that you could buy a few things, but you couldn't always have, like, the best armor, the best weapon, and still enough gold to, like, make a bed and kind of sleep on it like Smog the Dragon. Unless you wanted to play these mini-games where you slowly acquire maybe 10 gold pieces a pop. There's 3 mini-games, and they're inversely difficult to what real life should be. Brawling, kind of like if you were having a Fight Club street fight going on, I never fucked up once. Because it's all a QuickTime event, and it's like the easiest QuickTime event I've played in a long time. Like, as far as, like, if I were to fight, like, even a dragon, if I'm doing this in a brawling style, my god. Gervault is never going to be hit, as far as, like, fuck. Quit using a sword, just go as a Buddhist monk, man. You're kicking ass like that. Arm wrestling was challenging. I only had trouble with one guy and had to, like, reload once, because one guy was actually difficult. But it's kind of like keeping your cursor within a slowly shrinking area as it kind of moves around. But I mean, it's still super easy. But the thing is, like, you know, the arm wrestling's slightly more challenging than the brawling, which kind of strikes me as odd, because I'd think more people would be good at arm wrestling than, you know, actually hand-to-hand punching each other in the face. You know what's the most brutal sport of all, though? Fucking dice poker. You know, probably something that everybody could do. I'm not saying everybody'd be good at it, but I think, you know, compared to, like, street fighting, I don't know, it's a very different time and age, so maybe, you know, dice poker was, like, the very avant-garde, you know, very few people played it back in the Middle Ages, whereas street brawling, everyone was a champion back in the day, and it was super easy or something. That aside, dice poker is possibly the worst game ever, and it's actually why I originally got these dice, because I want to explain how it sucks. First off, there's a reason we use either Arabic numbers. You can see that's a 3. You know, this is very, like, you know, even all the way over here, it's a 3, you know. Or, you know, what about this? It's 6. You can easily count the dots. It's not challenging. It's very easy on the eyes. Roman numerals are a bit challenging, but, you know, as long as you kind of are familiar with Roman numerals, it's not rocket science, you know. What Witcher decides to do is it's created its own number system, which is a circle for 1, 2 interlocking circles for a 2, a triangle for a 3, square for a 4, pentagram for a 5, hexagram, or let's say a Star of David for a 6. And that on its own is kind of confusing, But, eventually you could get used to that. Except, in the center of each number, they put a Roman numeral as well. Now, I said the dots and the Arabic numbers, that they're good on their own. I think if you were to combine the two of them on a single die, it would start to obscure the clarity. You're suddenly, less is more. Just pick one and stick with it. Also, I know this is an issue just with the Xbox version of the game because I looked at the PC version. But the PC version, whenever you're playing the game, they'll set up your dice here, the enemy's dice over here, and you can kind of get a good idea of what's going on. In the Xbox version, for whatever reason, whenever they set up your dice, they'll set it up. Now, keep in mind, it's got these confusing-ass numbers, but then they show it to you like this. Can you read the top of the dice? I can, but I don't know about you guys. I mean, playing any game like this, where you're at eye level, like imagine playing chess. I'm not particularly good at chess, but imagine playing chess and you're at eye level with the board. Certain shit's going to be blocking my path, and I can't really see, depth is kind of a bit obscured, There's certain reasons that you don't play a board game at eye level. One other thing, and see, that's the thing, it's like something simple like that. This isn't like a very common mistake or something confusing like, oh, camera angles. Cameras can be a bit shitty in video games. I get it. It's hard to program a camera, but basic game design. We're not even talking video game design. We're just talking game design in general. Like, shit. If I was a teacher and somebody had said, hey, here's our dice poker game, it's like, wow, these are amateur mistakes. I mean, I'm not even into making video games, and I can easily point out the issues with this. This is why I felt the need to do this review, is because certain things like this, like, people should notice this. There is an issue here, because dice poker, unfortunately, is integral to many of the side plots. This game that's completely based on luck and the shittiest mechanics I've ever seen. Also, my personal favorite is they let you roll the dice, which I don't think they should have, because what ends up happening is you have to lightly tap whenever you're going to throw the dice. Because if not, if you do like a normal tap or swing with the dice, your dice are floating around, he's kind of rolling them. If you don't do the light tap, which does that, instead, what happens, like just a regular, well, suddenly, there's my dice! And you're never playing with the most nice people ever. If the dice go off the table, suddenly, you can't use those dice. So if you've ever played poker, imagine trying to make a 5-card hand whenever you've only got 4 cards or 3 cards. You immediately lose. I don't know much about odds, so I can't give you the exact, percentage chance of losing per card or die lost in the process. But I guarantee you, it's dramatic. So why even bother giving us the option of either kind of like gingerly dropping the dice and just hoping that spinning in midair and gravity change your dice up for you, or fucking chucking them halfway across the room? It's retarded. Now let's say you did have a bunch of money to spend around. What would you spend it on aside from gear, weapons, good things? Now I almost feel like this one's my fault because I remember whenever I was looking at The Witcher 1, one thing that always kind of struck me as a bit misogynistic was the fact that, okay, The Witcher sleeps around a lot. That's sort of his thing. So it's not like the relationships are very intense like Mass Effect, where you get to build up a relationship, or let's say Skyrim, where it's very sterile, but at least you get to choose who you want to marry, sort of thing. In this game, you basically get to have sex 2-3 times, that it's story-related. Every other time, now in the original game, they really marketed the fact that, he sleeps around a lot, he's a player, and they would have, like, a little collectible card game, which, it's sort of misogynistic that you're basically having sex with people and collecting cards and kind of filling in a scrapbook, like, I've slept with 30 of the 40 characters in the game, it's a bit iffy, But here, you get literally nothing. Whether you spend 1 gold piece or 101 gold pieces, there is nothing. You get like a 15-second shittiest sex scene I've ever seen with nudity in it. Somehow, like, Dragon Age has been more tasteful with its weird handfall thing than this with the full-on nudity. It just looks awkward. And they all sound the same too, which is hilarious. But yeah, you get nothing. You just 101 gold pieces later, that's it. You spent your money. So I guess if you don't have internet and can't search up porn, and you're young, you can like save your game before you spend your money and keep spending your money. I guess if that works. But for most people, like, I just would prefer to spend my money on stuff that I'm actually going to get something for. Like, at the very least, if I got an achievement, because it is an Xbox game, you know, achievements might be nice. I could see some point in doing it, but really it's just kind of tacked on. And it's funny because they still tried to sell it as, ooh, we're dark. We've got our whole sex angle going on, you know. I'm not going to be editing this because I'm already working on another review where I am actually editing, and editing takes forever. And I want this review out of here. I want it done. You're probably wondering why the hair is done up all messy. I tried reviewing it beforehand, but I hadn't had all my thoughts properly organized. Reason I'm reviewing it right now rather than waiting till later is because I honestly picked up this game. I tried playing it quite a bit whenever I first got it. And any game, you know, after a while of playing it, you know, sometimes I'll drop it and then I'll pick it up and I'll start playing it again. Even games that piss me off, like Dark Souls. I remember that game kind of pissed me off for various reasons. I still got around to picking it up and playing it again because the controls were smooth and the gameplay, to a degree, was fun whenever you weren't falling off of cliffs and cheap bullshit deaths. This one isn't fun. Like, I played it for roughly on and off again for a week or so, and I just stopped playing altogether because it just wasn't an enjoyable experience. So much for an 88% review. Some people may like this, but honestly, take it with a serious grain of salt. What I'd suggest doing, look at a Let's Play. Honestly, look at a Let's Play of this game before you actually want to invest money in it, because you won't know what the controls are like until you actually have the controller in your hands and are playing it. But hopefully, if you're watching a Let's Play, you'll be like, wow, some of these menus, and take a look at the radar. Notice how the radar is completely useless in this game. It's kind of just there because other RPGs have them. Stuff like that. Try finding a blind Let's Play. That would be even better, because you think they're going to be confused playing, you're going to be confused watching them trying to figure this out as well. That's about all I'm going to say. Is it a terrible game? No, I guess not. There's certain things, like, as I said, the plot's really good. I was kind of digging the story. It makes me want to read the books, you know, because even the game itself was written like it's supposed to be reading a book. So maybe that's the key, is just read the books, ignore the video game. The video game, though, kind of just strikes me as average. Like, even less than average, because here's the thing. The gameplay mechanics and all that make it less than average, but with the story and the graphics, those are above average, so they kind of equal out to make an average game. Definitely not an 88% game. More of a, as I said, 70, maybe 60 if I was feeling really negative. And that's all I'm going to say. If you have any comments you want to add to that, I'll try and respond to you guys. My next review should be coming up in a bit. I've ranted enough. If there's other games you guys also want reviewed, I could see if I could do that, if I've played them. Anyways, talk to you guys later.